This is John Bloom of Bloom Consulting, and today we're going to be talking about Hadoop, specifically the Hortonworks Platform 2.4 for HyperV, which means we're essentially going to run the HyperV on our local machine, and it's going to contain our master node and all of our data nodes. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you have to do is log on to the Hortonworks site, this URL, the sandbox, and they give you the option to import 3 different types. And you'll notice that HyperV is not one of those options. So in order to get around that, we downloaded the import on VirtualBox. From there, I found this great site to convert your Hortonworks Sandbox to run on HyperV. Essentially, it creates a VHD file. And that VHD file is important because that's basically the hard drive that we're going to insert into our HyperV. And as you can see here, what I did was I created a brand new virtual machine with no hard drive. And then we went into the settings and we told it where the hard drive resides, and we set it there. Also, I set the memory to 2332. Now what's interesting though is that you can set the maximum, because what happens is, even though that's not a lot of memory, I set it to dynamically grow. So as you can see, it is consuming 5,000 megabytes of memory. So that's, even though this machine doesn't have a tremendous amount of memory, we can still get around that because it grows dynamically. Because if I set it to run at a higher amount, it won't initiate the VM. So another thing you have to keep in mind when setting up your HyperV VM for Hadoop, Hortonworks HTTP 2.4, are the configuration setting. So in your etc file, which is in your Windows System 32 drivers, there's a file called host. And if we were to right click on that, you'll edit with Notepad and it'll pop up. And what we do is we want to translate the service name to sandbox.hortonworks.com, and we're going to tell it to use this IP address. And you may have to run that file as the administrator or copy the file to another location and then make your changes and copy it back. So that tells it how to translate this URL here, sandbox.hortonworks.com. The other thing I had to do was I went in and set my, my initial Ethernet connection, which is connected to my file's internet, so I can get to the outside world. I basically go into 4, and I set the properties, and I set an alternate configuration. And as you can see, it defined a default gateway, which is important because we'll use that down the road. Also, the prefix 192.168.0, that's what I set it to. So then you have a connection which gets set in your HyperV over here under your Virtual Switch Manager, and I created an internal sandbox connection, internal, and then that pops up in your network settings here. And I also set the IP address to a specific location, the 192.168.0 and .6, because the VM that we're running is 192.168.0.27. And so that's how it's able to communicate on the same path there with the same subnet. And then we're using the default gateway which we assigned previously. And also, if you want to check your configurations, you can go to your command prompt and run a IP config. The machine is down now, but basically there's my IP address for my network connection to my VPN, and then here's my home router, and it's got the same. Now what's interesting is the default gateway, it's the same here, it's the same here, but that configuration setting is used elsewhere on the Hadoop site, and I'll get to that in just a minute. The other thing we had to do was disable the Internet Protocol version 6. Okay. What that allows you is to instantiate the VM from here, where you click on well, start, and then you do a connect, and what happens is your Hortonworks VPN shows up and you can log in, and when you log in, the default username is root, and then it prompts you to change your password, which we already did. Now, one thing I was telling you about the connection, because it's converted from the Oracle version to the Microsoft version, some of the settings have to be configured. And the way that I did that was there's this file. Well, I'll show you where we are in the path first. We're in etc sysconfig network scripts. And if we were to VI it, which is essentially a notepad editor within a Linux environment, because you're going to have to get familiar with Linux if you use this platform. So, and then the address HW suffix with a 07. And then there's the IP address I was showing you with a .27. And then I also had to enter the gateway to 11. So if you don't do that, it's not going to configure correctly from the Embari web. So I did that, and the escape, you do escape, :Q, or if you want to save your changes, it's WQ. So we'll go ahead and exit out of there. And then the other setting that we had to do, let me go up a directory. Where are we? Okay, so that was that. And then this one we want to go into is udev, and then we'll do a list, and then we'll go into our rules.d. We'll do a list, and then you'll see that file there, 70 persistent net rules. Well, that's the file that we're interested in. So we'll go ahead and VI that one. And what happens is when you first boot up, there's multiple entries. There's one for ETH0 and ETH1. Well, at this point I'm at the ETH1, and you'll see that same MAC address there is .7 at the end. So that's important, because if those don't line up correctly, you're never going to connect from your Embari web. So that's just a useful piece of information that I discovered while trying to connect. Okay, so now we're in the Hadoop world, and to escape we'll do escape:*Q, and we can run a quick Hadoop command, Hadoop file system. We'll do an ls/. And what that'll do, it'll show us all the folders and folders under the root directory. So that'll show you that we're able to connect from, well, in the Linux environment we can connect to our Hadoop HDFS cluster. So that may take a minute, as my resources are maxed on this machine. But what we can do is, this is the default website that runs on the Embari, on the Linux server. And if you were to click on here, which is the Embari, it comes default with Maria_dev. So we already logged into our server, and this is what the Embari server looks like. And it's a great feature because it gives you an overall map of what's going on. Unfortunately, on this, it hasn't refreshed, so it's got all these question marks. But you can administer your Hadoop cluster from here, and that's basically all you need. Another thing you can do is you can run your Hive scripts or your Pig scripts from the Embari web, or you can run them from your HDFS, this here, and there's the return results. So that's basically a quick version of how to connect to the Hortonworks HTTP 2.4 using HyperV on a Windows machine. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you. Bye.